Hey, welcome back to another episode of Growing Some Louisiana History with me, David Hubbell. So as I promised you in the very first episode of this series, we're going to do a part 2 on the Creole tomato. I'm going to do the same with all the other tomato varieties I've covered thus far. In this case, what I want to do is show you what the plants look like roughly 6 to 8 weeks later, as well as the important test, the taste test. So you'll get to see those cut up and sliced, and my thoughts as I taste them and share them with you. Again, I always want to take the time to thank all those who've already subscribed to the David J. Hubbell YouTube channel. It helps out a lot to know that people are interested in the subjects I'm talking about. And if you haven't done so, please do so. Just simply hit subscribe, as well as click that bell to be alerted to all upcoming videos that I'll be doing on here, or my Louisiana garden that I'm talking about here with the heirloom Louisiana seeds, or hybrid seeds, as you'll soon find out. Just to recap, if you go back to part 1 of this episode, you'll find out that the Creole tomato is really not a specific variety as much as a marketing term that was used going back at least to the 20s and 30s, I think, all the way through to today. In fact, there's a Creole tomato festival that's held in the French Market in New Orleans starting around 1986, and it seems to be about the first, maybe around June 10th or 11th, thereabouts, so early part of June, just when tomatoes are coming in ripe. So I'll put a more of an in-depth summary that you can see here, but you know, the original tomatoes that were grown talked about were the Break-a-Day, as well as other varieties that families that grew them along the St. Bernards, Jefferson, Orleans, St. Charles, and as far up as St. John the Baptist parishes. That was the that's really what most people consider a Creole tomato. And a Creole is really not a variety so much as a heirloom or even a hybrid tomato that has been grown in those alluvial soils along the Mississippi River. They make some of the best tasting tomatoes with great acidity and sweetness. So starting about 1980, a new variety came upon the scene called Celebrity, and it was really a hybrid. It wasn't really from Louisiana, but it was a good mix of a lot of the things that people were looking for in a tomato. It was a good size, anywhere from maybe 8 to 10 ounces, about a 70 to 75 day semi-determinate tomato, very juicy and acidic. And in fact, around 1980 is when the seeds were released for the first time. And I think pretty much what a lot of people said is that since the 1980s, the Celebrity has become the favored tomato as Creole tomatoes in that region. Although you have some of the older growers like the Becknells and the Gallo family that have heirloom seeds that they have kept on going for years and years. So those seeds, primarily the Celebrities, will give you a good idea of what getting a Creole tomato will taste like if you're trying to grow them like me outside the area. Now, another thing that you can do, possibly, if you have enough inclination, enough time and fortitude, maybe money, is to amend your soil so that it kind of is more reflective of the alluvial soils that you'll find in South Louisiana. That may mean you have to get some rich lake or river sand to supplement in your beds or your garden and incorporate that in to kind of give it that same minerals and all. You could find mineral breakdowns of the alluvial soils, which I kind of tried to do back when I started my beds back many years ago. But typically all I do now is I just mulch, and I have some live oaks and red oaks in my yard that I just collect those, let those leaves break down, because I'll add some acidity to my dirt, as well as I add the grass clippings and any type of kitchen compost that I get. So I'll mix all those in, and that has given me a really good soil over the last several years. But one thing I will tell you is that if you're putting in these beds like I've done, you'll need to rotate them every so often, because I find after about 2 or 3 years in the same beds, those tomatoes tend not to perform as well. In fact, they're more susceptible to the wilts and the nematodes. So I'll switch them up every 2 or 3 years. I've got 3 beds altogether, but right now I've switched back to this bed, and this year I'm really doing well with it done so far with the different varieties. So hopefully that little tip will help you if you're trying to grow a Creole type tomato outside the Louisiana area. So due to the popularity of the Creole tomato in the Louisiana culture and the New Orleans area too, there's been a Creole tomato festival since 1986, and I think most recently the French Market Corporation is the one that really hosts this. And my cousin Mark Michelli has been volunteering there for the last several years, and back in 2016 he snagged me a copy of the 30th anniversary cookbook. So this is a cool little book here with all kinds of ideas of different Creole tomato recipes to cook. Things like fried boudin balls with Creole tomato aioli sauce, caprese salad, New Orleans style, roasted Creole tomato cup salad. There's even a fried green tomato recipe in here, and green tomato pickles. As we mentioned, in addition to the old heirloom varieties, we also had a Creole variety that LSU released between 1956 and maybe 69. I've seen two different dates there, and I'll have a little more detail on that as well in the review notes to give you an idea what that is. But what I have found is that they did not do that well for me this year. One of the complaints I had, as you'll see when I cut up the few, is that oftentimes the top third or so, or maybe fourth, was a lot more plant stem-like material and not as much meat and seed. You'll see that in there, and that's been one of the things that I've remembered growing throughout the years. No matter where I've got the seeds from that said Creole, it's always seemed like they'd have that problem. And it's not really a problem, it's the amount that you can eat from it is not as great as, say, what you get with a celebrity. But I'll show you what I've got out there as far as the remaining Creole vine, as well as what my celebrity looks like. Let's go see what it looks like out there in the garden. So if you went back to the first episode, you'll remember I had my Creoles on the edge. Well, this is what they look like now. This is what they look like now. Nothing but withered, dried leaves. And I have them back there, and both of them, both of the vines just died within about a month of the last video I put out. So I don't really know. All the other tomatoes seem to be doing well, as you can kind of see. This one had a little more exposure to sunlight, which you thought would have been helpful. So I don't know whether this little patch at the back end of the garden was a problem, or whether just the seeds just really weren't that great, or at least this particular batch I got. So please don't hesitate to give them a try in your garden. And if you've done successfully with these Creole varieties from LSU, please share with us and let us know. So this is the celebrity. You can see it's starting to really give out after 6 weeks or so. Leaves are starting to get some issues and all, but like I said, it's been getting in the 90s. We got this tomato on here. Let me find some more. You can see these are some more of the celebrities on there. Down here, a few remaining. I don't expect these to get exceptionally big. Here's another celebrity here. This one's doing better on the back end still. So the diameter of these are celebrities, 3-inch diameter, about 2 inches deep. The smaller one is roughly about 2 inches across, maybe about 1 3/4 inches deep. I usually peel my tomatoes, and you can see that the skin on the celebrity is very thin. See how nice and red and juicy that is. I'll cut the other top part. Here you can see there's not quite a lot, but the solid part, there's a lot of flesh and seeds, so there's not a lot of waste in this tomato. Perfect. Now these are the Creole variety. Unfortunately, they didn't get really big. They do get bigger than this. It's just that my plant had issues. But I just don't want to show you what the inside looks like, because I've noticed a trend with these. So I didn't even bother to weigh these or measure the diameter. But you can see they're kind of more flat, oblong, or flat globe. As I said before, I like to peel my tomatoes. You can see the skin on this one's also thin, but maybe quite a little bit thicker. My biggest problem with the Creoles is that up here you got a lot more solid part, not as much meatiness. And I noticed this in the bigger ones. You can see this really here, but you don't have a lot of good tomato meat. Now if it gets up to be 10 ounces or more, the top third is really just a lot of this. So that's the big issue I have with the Creole version LSU put out many years ago. Otherwise, you can see it's not too bad. Maybe slightly a little less red than the Celebrity. So there you go, folks. You can see the Creole tomato vine is not looking well at all. In fact, it's basically done for. Now, had I grown more than the two, hopefully I would have done better. Like I said, the tomatoes that you saw that I cut up weren't really that very big in size, but that's mostly because of the fact that I had to pick them as the plant was kind of dying off. But they will get bigger, so I don't let that one example put you off from trying a Creole seeds put out by LSU back in the 50s and 60s. Try them for yourself. You may find that they may have a totally different result for your garden, and they may be the best Creole tomato or tomato that you've tried to grow. As you can see, the Celebrities are doing really well out there, and I've got an overabundance. And as I showed in the video, I like them. They're thin skinned. I peeled my tomatoes, but they're very juicy, and year after year they are very consistent with flavor and yield. So when I started growing my garden back in the late 90s and talked to my grandfather, he told me back for years in the 60s and 70s when he started his gardens in his yard, he was planting the Creole variety from LSU. But he says around 1980, when those seeds came out, he switched to Celebrity, and that's pretty much, I think, all he really grew were the Celebrities. He might have experimented from time to time, but when we get those Celebrities from him, they're always outstanding and great, and had such wonderful flavor. So me having the Celebrities reminds me both of my grandfather and my dad, because they both grew that variety as well. So if you have any questions on the Creole tomato and its history, please send me a comment at rpcajun2r@gmail.com, or leave them in the comment section below. Also, if it's been helpful to you, please share with your tomato loving friends, especially those who are into Creole tomatoes or Louisiana varieties. Also, if you haven't done so, please click that alert button so you'll be alerted to all upcoming videos that I put out on growing some heirloom seeds or cooking some heirloom recipes. And please subscribe to the David J. Hubbell YouTube channel. And also check out mirliton.org, mirliton.org, on the internet as well as Facebook. You'll find me there a lot talking about Mirliton. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.